presenters are Jonathan and Fionn. And Jonathan and Fionn are going to talk about their experiences working as father and son, but also working as owners, managers, directors of their own business called Fionn Productions. And you will hopefully have seen, if you've been following Facebook at all, because these guys are all over Facebook, you will have seen them not just in Facebook but also on RTE with Brendan O'Connor, and where Fionn was playing and Jonathan was supporting him as well, because Fionn's an accomplished violinist as well.
Yeah.
So he's promised that maybe later on at some stage he might play for us. So we might hold him to that. So I'm just going to hand over to them. They're going to explain to you from their perspective what getting a good life looks like after school. So over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So my name is Fionn and I'm here with my dad, Jonathan.
So my name is Jonathan, and before we talk about Fionn, just first of all to say a little bit about myself, and I'm sorry my voice is not as it usually is. And I think this is pertinent to our journey together. Before Fionn was born, I was living in the United States, and I grew up with a cousin who has Down syndrome. And my cousin John, his situation would be very different from Fionn's in that he never learned to speak, and he had I suppose you'd say a very simple life, you know, but a very good life too. Actually, he until recently has lived with his family on a farmhouse in a farm, and his mom is really devoted to him and just has created for him a really wonderful. He's a happy guy, and I think what's similar to Fionn's situation is just that he's so well loved. You know, that really came across to me. So I grew up with the idea of disability being just something you know, it's just part of the family. It's just something that is part of the community. And also, then just a few years before you were born, Fionn, I was training to be a teacher in the Steiner schools system, Waldorf schools, they call them in the United States. And I remember one of the teacher trainers saying to us all that because in this school system, a primary school teacher starts with class 1 and then continues on with that same group of children for 6 or 8 years, that you really get to know not only the children but their parents and their grandparents and the whole community, and you see the children go through many life experiences, and it's a really strong community-based experience. And we were humble enough to realize that as teachers, so much of what happens in terms of learning in the classroom is happening between the children. Really what we do, standing in front of the class, is only a small portion of the education of children. And this instructor said, if you should be fortunate enough to have someone with special learning situations, someone who's, I don't remember if you used the word disabled, but someone who's really unique in the group, you're blessed, really, because the whole group will learn so much from that person that any class who has someone like that in the class is a lot stronger as a result. And so I was kind of thinking to myself, oh, I hope that happens, you know. And then so when Veronica and I found out that Fionn was coming, and then he came, and then we found out that he has Down syndrome, I was secretly thrilled at the idea, really, because I thought, oh, this is my child with Down syndrome. You know, it's kind of like, yep, that makes our family complete then. So I tell you that as a bit of background, that I don't think it's a very actually, I know it is a very common experience. I spoke with a researcher who has devoted all of her career to studying the responses of parents to receiving the news that their child has Down syndrome. And what she has found across the world is that they frequently have a time of loss or a sense of mourning, or that just initially it's a shock. but that parents, with very few exceptions, later learn to love their child and to really appreciate the Down syndrome as part of who their child is. And really, so many people say, well, sure, I wouldn't want it to be gone. We've learned to love that part of our child. And for me, it was just a much quicker learning curve. It took about 6 hours or so before I thought, this is really exciting. This is a great thing that will make an important part of who you are, Fionn. So, here we are in the early days. And what do you want to say about any of those pictures?
I lived in America for a year, for some time, and there's a picture of my mom and I, and I'll probably doing the smiling at the camera, I suppose.
Celebrating St. Patrick's Day in Minnesota, actually, in my classroom. Yeah. And there's a picture of you having fallen asleep at the top of the stairs and checking out a basket.
Yeah.
And so for school, we wanted Fionn to go to the Steiner School. This is Raheen Wood School in County Clare, where I was teaching. And it was a good fit in terms of the class and all. You had a great time there, didn't you? But when we talked to the Department of Education about supporting our choice to send Fionn to an independent school, they said, well, sure, we can't stop you from doing that, but we're not going to help you. Like, you don't get an SNA, basically is what they said. And we didn't think that really felt right. It says in the Constitution that it's the parents' choice to determine what school the children should go to. And we didn't see why we shouldn't have what any other child in the country would have. So we took a high court case and they settled with us. So Fionn did have an SNA for those years. And one of the really cool things about that is that because we were in an independent school and the teachers were all very busy just trying to run the school, it's one of those places where the teachers stay and sweep the floors afterwards and all of that kind of thing, that when the school got